Are you talking about this topic at all? The 5G interference issues? Is that something that's on your radar? No pun intended.
Yes, absolutely. It's something. That is not specifically a U.S. freedom flyers issue. However, I can speak a bit to that. I've been on several news programs speaking to this issue.
Oh, good. Okay.
What you're seeing here is completely irresponsible. It's the telecom companies who are placing profits well ahead of passenger safety. You know, I believe it was in 2018 or since 2018, there have been multiple inquiries of the FCC asking them to please halt these programs and pointing out the dangers that this is going to create for air travel. I think it was I want to say early 2021 when the FCC actually auctioned off the rights to the C band of 5G, which is in very close correlation to the frequencies that are used by our radar altimeters, which is something that is critical to being able to land an aircraft in very low weather, right? So, it affects different aircraft in different ways. But there are certain aircraft out there that it absolutely creates a massive safety concern, and the telecom companies don't care. And you know, I know the FAA and the airlines are raising the alarm, but ultimately the U.S. government's going to have to step in here and shut this down, because if they put these 5G towers next to the airports, as they're currently doing, there are major hubs, you know, where they're keeping them, I think, 2 to 3 miles out from the airports to do away with the interference. But what happens, you know, when we come to the major airport and we can't get in and we have to divert, we divert to a smaller airport, one that's not protected. And now we come down, you know, once again, low weather, our equipment's not working correctly. We're essentially misjudging our distance between, you know, the aircraft and the ground. We're getting bad information being fed into our instruments. We're now being set up for a catastrophic crash. It's completely irresponsible what they're doing.
The person who sent me this was sent to an airline, I guess, or the airline sent it to the pilots. It's told me that this would terrify someone who knows what they're looking at. Because I'm not terrified because I don't know what I'm looking at. Why would this terrify somebody who knows what they're looking at?
Well, essentially, you're talking about being given inaccurate information about the altitude of the aircraft above the ground. So if it's telling you that you're at 200 feet and in fact you're at 100 feet, and you're flying an approach, and and that's miscalculated, that means potential ground impact. So, and when you do that going, you know, 150, 160 miles per hour, it's not a great option.
Is ground impact the term that the civilians would call a crash?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Absolutely. I mean, it seems like the nice way to say it.
Like
when you're, like farmers are going, I'm going to harvest my chicken. You know what I mean? You're like, okay, I know what that means. Okay. So you seem like you're deep in the world when it comes to the vaccine mandates and the vaccines, of the information war, the suppression of information, the perhaps purposeful continuation of disinformation or misinformation. I'm curious on this topic. Do you have any thoughts about like why we weren't hearing about this earlier? Why now all of a sudden we are hearing about it? Because something I didn't pay enough attention to as a mainstream reporter was when and how and who was releasing information and why they were doing it. What were they signaling? Hey, we just want to let you know that we have this problem because then you can't sue us. Are they something going on with the cell phone companies, and so they're fighting this out in the court of public opinion? Do you have any thoughts on like why now this is becoming a big news story? Is there some kind of reaction that they're like the powers that be would want us, the civilian, to have from this that you feel like is maybe either, I don't know, maybe it's helpful or maybe it's not helpful? Just curious how you might see that information campaign related to this, not the other issue we're talking about.
This should have become a massive news story back in 2018 when the FCC was initially warned. But what you have to do is you have to go back into the Bill Clinton years. I don't have it in front of me, but he signed an executive order that gave telecom companies basically immunity, just like the vaccine companies. So they can actually take steps and put in technologies that harm the American public, and they have immunity. So I think that might be part of the issue at play. I need to do a lot more research on it before I speak definitively to that issue. But this is not an issue that was just raised once. This was raised multiple times to the FCC since 2018, and then they went ahead and they auctioned off the rights to the C-band, and now we're up against this issue. And they're pushing so hard to put this everywhere. And you have to ask yourself, like, what else is going on? Like, this isn't just to improve the speed of your cell phone service. I don't profess to know everything that's going on. I've been following many issues like this for a lot of years, about 15 years. I've been going down just about every rabbit hole you can go down. I'm not gonna speculate. I'm not gonna speculate here, but I think it's important that people look into maybe some of the greater issues that are surrounding this. There's a lot of interesting information out there that you can find, and draw your own conclusions. But what we really need right now from the American people is stop watching mainstream television, for one. I'm lying to you, and start doing some digging on your own. Educate yourself.
Right. Yeah. Keep watching Allison Morrow, but definitely watch on my other platforms, because you're not going to get everything here on YouTube. I'm pretty sure that 75% of what we talked about, YouTube would take down as a community guideline strike. But to your point, right. I do wonder a lot now, almost like if I have an initial gut reaction to something, I question it because I think, is that the reaction that somebody wants me to have? Like, get hysterical and do this in order, like, I think about that a lot with I don't know, with people who, like, again, to go back to what we were talking about with the rallies, the mandate protests, would there be nothing more than the people who want to label domestic terrorism or white nationalists or whatever than there to be some kind of inciting of bad behavior or violence or whatever, to be like, see, this is exactly it. And so I always question my like initial reaction to stuff is that what they want me? When I say they, I have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm still trying to figure that one out. But is that purposeful in order to create a division or a particular situation? I was never critical of this stuff. I didn't ask these questions hardly ever when I was in mainstream news. And when I started asking them, that was eventually why I quit, because I realized that I was just never going to have the time and ability to continue asking those questions in a way that I felt like I could go on television that night and feel like I had answered them thoroughly enough to go on as an authority on the news. And so I had to get out. But I just wonder about that. Like, in this case, did they think, okay, like, there's no getting by this, like, eventually terrible information is going to come out, so let's lead the charge. If we can get the information out there, then we can control the narrative. So we'll just give a little piece of the truth so that the public has something to argue about or to freak out about or discuss. But we're missing, something else. But it's like a distraction. I mean, I know you would have thought I was a conspiracy theorist a couple years ago. Not that there's anything wrong with, everyone goes, but there's nothing wrong with conspiracy. That's a CIA term. I get it. But I'm just saying that was just not on my radar anymore. And I think now, like, that's the first thing I think about is why am I seeing this? Like, if I'm being allowed to see this, I question it immediately, because there's so much we're not allowed to see. And for arguing over something, like, everybody's talking about something, that makes me almost more suspicious of it, because it feels like the more nefarious stuff is stuff we're not debating, not arguing about, because we're not even looking at it.
I agree with you. I think some of it's distraction, but I think that I think that you're really onto something there, where you said we might be playing into their narrative, or they might be trying to create a narrative as well. And, when they talk about white nationalism or whatever it is, in association with like fighting these mandates, etc. I think personally, just my personal opinion, I think that they are actually hoping for violence, because if there is violence, that gives them a reason to come after guns, to come after different things. I think it's so important that those of us that are fighting this, that we stay peaceful, and that we beat them at their own game by having better data, better resources, better arguments, and by really educating the American people. I think that's what's so important, is we need to educate ourselves, so that we don't fall into the traps of knee-jerk reactions.
You can't bring your own alcohol onto an airplane, but the second you get off, you should be drinking a high altitude Malbec from Argentina. High altitude like the flight you just finished, but without the toddler like my producer kicking you in the back the entire way. You get 50% off the wine itself and 50% off shipping. One of these comes from the oldest vineyard in Argentina, another from almost 9,000 feet. They use no filtering, no flavoring, and no dyes. But whatever you're drinking or however high you are up in the sky, don't forget to check out my sponsors and support free speech wherever you are.